will be like in a second term with the President Trump's second term. A lot of people
I know what it'll be like if we let her in.
Yeah. Oh, really?
And that ain't good.
Yeah.
Miserable
I don't think Kamala will ever hold public office again.
Better not.
I don't think you can come back from. It wasn't that she was outfoxed.
Lost,
it wasn't that she lost. I think you can certainly lose an election and run a good election.
Mel Gibson and Tyrus just pulled off the unthinkable. They torched Kamala Harris so fiercely, the internet might need a group therapy session. Picture this: Braveheart colliding head-on with late-night comedy, and Kamala caught in the middle of the cinematic carnage. You thought you'd seen political drama? Think again. This is next-level chaos, Hollywood rage fused with Fox News fire. Mel and Tyrus didn't just throw punches. They detonated the entire Kamala narrative like it was scripted for primetime mayhem. Buckle up, this isn't commentary. It's a cultural explosion.
Mel Gibson just said about Kamala Harris.
She got the IQ of a fence post.
Let's fact check that. Can you point to something in your life that you think was a mistake that you've learned from?
I mean,
Greg, the teleprompter went up and they cheered too long.
Yeah.
And she panicked because all she couldn't remember the connection word. So she panicked. This ain't close, I'm telling you.
You need to hear what Mel Gibson just said about Kamala Harris. It's brutal, unfiltered, and oddly fascinating. He didn't just criticize her. He tore through her performance with surgical precision. "You've got the IQ of a fence post," he said, and then the room went silent. But here's where it gets wild. When asked to name a mistake she's learned from, Kamala froze. The teleprompter glitched, the crowd cheered too long, and suddenly she blinked, lost the connecting thought entirely. What followed wasn't leadership under pressure, it was panic caught in real time. And Mel? He wasn't letting that slide.
Record, no policies to speak
Yeah. And the border, right?
of. She got the IQ of a fence post.
Before we dive any deeper, go ahead and smash that like button and hit subscribe, because trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming next. Mel Gibson didn't just step into politics. He crashed into it like a man who finally realized Hollywood scripts aren't nearly as wild as real life. And, honestly, listening to Kamala sometimes feels like being trapped in a self-help seminar where the speaker forgets the point halfway through, but somehow still finds a way to charge double for inspiration. It's chaos wrapped in confidence, and Mel's not letting it slide.
Harris, she won't go to the border, probably because she'd rather take the magic school bus to the moon.
you guys are gonna see. You're gonna literally see the craters on the moon with your own eyes. Oh my goodness. With your own eyes, I'm telling you, it is gonna be unbelievable.
With your own eyes.
So when Mel Gibson finally decided he'd had enough of the chaos, subtlety wasn't even on the table. It was the cinematic equivalent of flipping a table mid-scene and yelling "cut" on live television. The man didn't just speak, he exploded with the kind of raw conviction only Mel can pull off. Think about it. This is an actor who spent years commanding ghostly armies across fog-soaked Scottish battlefields, and even he's looking around asking, what in the world is Kamala doing? When the guy who fought the English in Braveheart calls out your logic, you know realities.
They range from, if you've ever parented a child, you make lots of money.
He opens like a director setting up a scene. Picture this, he says, that familiar edge in his voice. America, the biggest blockbuster ever made. The lights, the drama, the high stakes. But who's running the show? Kamala Harris, a lead who somehow turned the script into a riddle wrapped in confusion, tied with a bow of secondhand enthusiasm. Every time she speaks, you can almost hear the inspirational soundtrack swelling in the background, hopeful, heroic, and yet completely detached from the chaos playing out on screen. Mel's not even angry. It's worse, he's baffled. His tone carries that quiet disbelief of a man who's seen enough behind-the-scenes disasters to recognize when the directors lost the plot. He compares Kamala's leadership to that one friend who starts telling a story, gets lost halfway through, but insists they're making sense. You nod out of politeness, but what you're really doing is waiting for a point that never lands. And Mel doesn't stop there. He jabs that politics at least used to pretend to have a script. Now it's full-blown improv night in Washington. Kamala's speeches? They sound like deleted TikToks stitched together by an intern surviving on cold coffee and false confidence. Every line loops back on itself, part poetry, part puzzle, and just a touch of pure panic.
I've become friends with school shooters.
When they asked her about the gun,
Yes.
and I got a Glock. What kind?
Yes.
And her answer was,
Yeah.
And Those were invented by nervous white people around black people.
Meanwhile, Tyrus, the man built like a refrigerator with a microphone, isn't exactly known for keeping his opinions on mute. Subtlety? Not his language. When he calls someone out, it's not a tap on the shoulder. It's a full-blown verbal body slam wrapped in sarcasm and delivered with a smirk. He looks at Kamala's brand of political optimism and calls it for what it is, the world's most expensive stand-up routine with zero punchlines. Sitting back in his chair, arms crossed like a veteran who's seen too many sequels to the same disaster, Tyrus watches Kamala speak the way you'd watch a slow-motion car crash, equal parts horror and disbelief. He says what everyone else is too polite to admit. Kamala loves to talk about understanding the moment, yet somehow manages to miss every single one in real time. And when Tyrus goes in, he doesn't stop. He compares her press appearances to bad improv sketches, the kind where everyone on stage is desperately pretending to know what's going on, praying someone will shout scene so they can finally escape. What really grinds him down is the applause, the standing ovations for nonsense. It's like cheering when someone explains that fire burns. From the sidelines, Mel watches with that philosophical squint, adding his own twist. He says it's pure studio politics, executives trying to sell a flop as a masterpiece. Washington's become Hollywood's sequel. All marketing, no meaning. The only problem? The audience isn't buying it anymore.
Set social media on fire with his blistering assessment of Kamala Harris. He said she has an appalling track record, no policies to speak of, and she's got the IQ of a fence post. Is Mel Gibson too big to be cancelled? Does he even care? He produces his own stuff these days, doesn't he?
He also financially and emotionally supported Robert Downey Jr. when he was dealing with his addiction problems.
He's not wrong. Every time Kamala steps up to a microphone, half the country braces like they're about to watch a live stunt with no safety harness. You never know what's coming next: laughter, confusion, or that uncomfortable silence where everyone's wondering if they missed the punchline. And Mel Gibson, being unapologetically Mel, doesn't sugarcoat it. He calls it a tragic comedy, a national stage play where everyone politely pretends the emperor is wearing Armani, when it's obvious he's standing there in pajamas. Tyrus takes a different swing, straight for the gut. He calls it the Kamala paradox. She's somehow everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Every headline has her name in bold, yet no one can quite explain what she's actually done. Her speeches, he says, sound like rejected Hallmark cards rewritten by a committee of interns on a caffeine crash. It's harsh, but painfully accurate. Mel digs deeper, saying the problem might not even be Kamala herself, but the mysterious script she's either following or completely freestyling. Somewhere in the West Wing, there's probably a lonely teleprompter wondering what it did to deserve this. He calls it bureaucratic improv theater, a production where talent is optional, timing is everything, and the only real requirement is a confident smile that convinces the crowd the plot still makes sense.
Things that you can say to people.
Yeah.
But I help people who harm people. God bless, good night, that's my time. That's what...
Tyrus doesn't give Kamala a free pass, not for a second. He compares her political presence to that one coworker who somehow keeps getting promoted for energy and potential, even though no one can quite figure out what they actually do all day. It's savage, but the crowd can't help but laugh because deep down, they know he's right. Then he doubles down with that signature deadpan delivery. If confidence were results, Kamala would be president of the galaxy by now. The audience erupts, not out of cruelty, but because the humor cuts with precision. This isn't hate, it's truth wrapped in comedy. Tyrus says Kamala's mastered the performance, the energy, the smile. the rhythm, but somewhere along the way, she misplaced the plot. It's like watching a Broadway musical where everyone's singing beautifully, but no one actually knows the lyrics. He ends with that sly smirk and a knockout line. Kamala's leadership might be revolutionary, not for progress, but for making millions suddenly nostalgic for silence.
First of all, she never saw the video.
Yeah.
Okay? That's not someone who describes a video.
Yeah.
That's someone that they handed this to her, and she was like, elephants? Oh, I'll take it from here. And then she went out there. And she was not drunk. She was hungover, because she's way worse when she's hungover. That was hungover because she kept saying the same thing over and over again. They surrounded, and then they formed a circle. And then they got together.
That's when Mel nearly spits out his drink, laughing, that kind of sharp, disbelieving laugh that says, you can't make this stuff up. But buried beneath the humor, there's a harder truth. Both he and Tyrus, in their own biting, sarcastic way, are exposing something bigger, that America's leadership has turned into a stage show about image instead of impact. It's all polished speeches and photo ops while the backdrop flickers between chaos and confusion, like a glitching broadcast no one's brave enough to turn off. Somewhere along the line, they've even forgotten what the original question was. It's political hypnosis disguised as inspiration, loud enough to dazzle, vague enough to avoid meaning. And it's not just Kamala, it's the whole system that rewards noise over nuance, performance over purpose. Mel Gibson, the man who once gave us Braveheart, looks genuinely stunned that the same nation that once stood for courage and conviction now cheers for carefully scripted confusion. He mutters something about how, at least in his movies, bad takes got edited out. Tyrus just grins, shaking his head. Hollywood might have gone soft, he says, but Washington's officially become its parody. And somewhere in that tragic comedy, Kamala's managed to play both the hero and the punchline.
We applaud people speaking their mind. There's certainly plenty of celebrities who are saying outrageous things about Donald Trump. So if Mel Gibson wants to share his thoughts, I think everyone can accept that, but probably not Hollywood.
Kamala might not be laughing, but the audience? They can't stop. Because at this point, the only way to survive the absurd circus of modern politics is to treat it like a dark comedy. And Mel and Tyrus? They're just getting started. The roast isn't over. It's barely begun. Think of it as the world's longest-running reality show, only nobody's winning, and the script keeps rewriting itself mid-scene. Kamala Harris takes the stage like a headliner in an ongoing illusion, smiling as if she's about to announce a revelation. But what follows feels less like inspiration and more like a riddle written by a poet who misplaced their thesaurus halfway through. Mel leans back, chuckling, shaking his head. It's the kind of speech, he says, where every word sounds important, until you realize the meaning evaporates faster than campaign promises the day after election night.
We haven't known her for the last 4 years or 3. It feels like 50. It really does. It really does. And you could make, now they're making the argument the reason why she was the way she was because she had to lay in the cut so Biden could do his thing, and she had to watch it. And one day she decided to go down to him and say, hey, it's my time. And he's like, you're right. And he stepped aside. And she's this great, noble person. And you know what? Let's say this is all true. I'm willing to have a restart with Kamala, a complete restart.
And Tyrus, never one to waste a perfectly good punchline, jumps in with that trademark smirk. He says Kamala's real talent lies in what he calls verbal jazz. Words that flow smooth, confident, even catchy, but somehow never land on the right note. It's all rhythm, no melody. You can't follow it, yet you can't look away either. It's hypnotic in the same way a slow-motion car crash is chaotic, confusing, and impossible to stop watching. Mel chimes in, saying it reminds him of Hollywood's obsession with remakes, the same storyline, dressed up, resold, and marketed as something fresh. Kamala's speeches feel exactly like that, recycled rhetoric with a new poster. Tyrus leans back, chuckling, shaking his head. All smiles, no substance, he says. You scroll through her clips, listening, waiting for that moment of clarity, but it never comes. By the end, you still don't know what she said, yet somehow you remember the laugh.
Today, in the courtroom,
I stood proudly before a judge and I said 5 words. Kamala Harris for the people. I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
People have their head on straight like Mel Gibson here. So he comes out and says this about Kamala Harris.
Mel doesn't just critique, he doubles down. He says Kamala's entire political strategy feels like it was brainstormed in a corporate marketing boardroom, surrounded by mood boards and buzzwords. It's all aesthetics, zero authenticity. Like someone watched The West Wing once and decided, yep, that's leadership. He calls it Instagram governance, filtered, captioned, perfectly framed, and completely detached from the chaos it's supposed to address. Then he drops the real punch. Kamala's speeches aren't about communication, they're about calibration. Every word feels tested, rehearsed, and edited for optics. Tyrus jumps in, grinning, saying Kamala could easily host her own late-night show, The Vice Hour, where every episode is a mix of policy talk and interpretive metaphors that no one fully understands. The tagline? Stay tuned, because even we don't know where this is going. Mel, ever the director, pauses for a beat, eyes narrowing like he's dissecting a scene, and then he takes it deeper.
Speech, and I'll go, Greg, I'm sorry I wasted your time on the show talking about it. So no matter how you dress that box up in ribbons and sprinkles, when you open it up, it's still full of incompetent.
Mel says what frustrates him most isn't Kamala herself, it's what she represents. A system that rewards charisma over clarity, performance over purpose. We've replaced competence with catchphrases, he says, and Kamala. She's the undefeated champ of polished confusion. Then the roast takes a theatrical turn. They start imagining Kamala's inner monologue mid-speech, and Mel acts it out with that classic director's flair. Okay, deep breath. Use the hands. Look passionate. Say something that sounds profound but can't be fact-checked. Smile. Pause. Repeat. The audience loses it, but there's truth beneath the laughter. Mel drives it home. Leaders used to inspire action, he says. Now, the goal is to keep everyone guessing so no one ever calls the bluff. If that's the game, then Kamala's playing 4D chess while everyone else is still fumbling with the box. Tyrus shoots him that knowing look, half serious, half sarcastic, the kind that says what everyone's thinking. This isn't just a roast of Kamala Harris. It's a roast of the entire machine that built her, the system that turned politics into performance art.
Caught up with actor and filmmaker Mel Gibson, who reaffirmed his support for former President Donald Trump, and he had some sick burns for Vice President Kamala Harris. The reporter asked Gibson who he was going to vote. After Gibson said that Kamala had the IQ of a fence post, demands were made for an immediate retraction and apology.
Mel leans back, that thoughtful glint in his eye, and says somewhere along the way, politics stopped being about leadership and turned into a contest of likability. It's not about vision anymore, it's about going viral. And Kamala, for all her flaws, has mastered that version of the game. She's not a policymaker, she's a performer. The camera adores her. The audience claps on cue. The words don't always land, but the vibe does, and in modern politics, vibe is the new truth. Tyrus smirks, shrugging like a man who's seen this script before. Maybe that's the real lesson of Kamala Harris, he says. She's not trying to make sense, she's trying to make headlines. The confusion is the message. The performance is the policy. Mel chuckles, shaking his head. In a world this upside down, he says, maybe she's the only one who actually gets it. Because when every politician sounds rehearsed and every speech feels like an audition, maybe Mel and Tyrus weren't roasting Kamala at all. Maybe they were holding up a mirror. And for once, America didn't like what it saw.